Hi everyone, my name is Rubina A Khan and welcome to the 15th edition of Rubina's Radar. Today I'm in conversation with an international culinarian, Alex Sanchez, an American who's made Mumbai his home for the past decade, earning plaudits like the best chef in India for his clean and refined approach towards food. But it's his flavorful fare at his very own Italian restaurant, Americano in Mumbai, that has everyone singing and asking for more. I mean, the man writes love letters with potatoes. Please welcome Chef Alex Sanchez, everyone. Hi, Alex.
Hey, am I coming in clear?
Uh, you should have some more lights on you.
Turn some lights on. Sure.
Much better.
Okay.
So, good evening to you.
Good evening to you. Nice to hear you. Nice to see you.
After we met just before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of just before the pandemic hit stories, but yeah, one of them was definitely.
Yes. So let's get started. You grew up in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then I'm more interested to know, how does a guy, an all-American guy, land up in India and becomes an international bawarchi?
Oh God. You know, it's something where I think I've told this story so many times that I'm not sure if if the embellishments are also part of the story, but I'll be frank that, you know, as a kid growing up, I can't honestly say that India was on my radar in terms of places that I imagined myself settling down as an adult. And I think beyond that, especially as I started cooking and started becoming, you know, more serious about being a chef, I always thought that the opportunity would be in these major food cities. So, you know, New York, maybe San Francisco, maybe Paris or London would be probably the furthest that I could imagine. And I just happened to be like in a very sort of transitionary period in my life where I had just finished my stint at Manresa in Los Gatos. And I think I was going through a breakup, and my cousin, who's a bit older than me and who is sort of a local celebrity in San Francisco in the food scene, he approached me and was like, "Hey, it looks like you're not, you know, not doing a whole lot with your life right now. I've been tapped to open a restaurant in Mumbai. So why don't you come with me? You'll be sort of my backup. You know, you'll support me, and then maybe you'll stay behind 3 months, 6 months at the most, to sort of take care of the restaurant, make sure the standards are in place and the systems are in place." So I said no right away, and then he kind of worked on me a little bit. Said, "Yeah, it'll be an interesting opportunity. You might get some, you know, interesting exposure, see a new place, see some new cuisine. At the very least, it'll be an interesting story to tell in the future." And it's been 10 years. So I think, you know,
I mean, from saying no to never leaving.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm very happy with that decision. But I think it was very much just happenstance and, you know, being kind of in the right place at the right time.
So obviously, you know the cultural palette of our country now, because your food caters and everybody just loves it. I mean, you won all the awards that can be possibly bestowed on a chef in India. So I want to know the most important question: how do you communicate with your teams, in Hindi or in English?
Well, it's much different now than it used to be. Before, it used to be basically just a lot of gesturing, angry face, screaming, to the point where, you know, my team just didn't want to see the nasty side of me. They didn't want to see the bad face. They wanted to see the smiling face. So it was a lot of just, okay, make chef happy, try to take whatever feedback that you're getting from him. But you know, it's first of all, it's no way to lead. But second of all, it's very difficult as someone who's learning from someone like that to know when you're really doing something right.
Mhm.
If all you're getting is either, you know, happy chef or mean chef. So, you know, fortunately, I've kind of learned to use the more English speaking cooks as translators, or as at least go betweens to the chefs that, or the cooks that have a harder time communicating with me. But I think what you really want to know is, do I speak do I speak any of the language?
आप मुझसे हिंदी में बात करके दिखाइए.
Yeah, tora is like as best as I can do. Somehow I've managed over the years to create this language that is very much a mixture of hand gestures and the very limited Hindi that I know, which is like, you know, up, down, left, right, hot, cold, now, later, like the more kind of urgent and important descriptors, and then mix that with a little bit of English and a little bit of pointing, and hope that
So
the message gets across.
you're basically an emoji chef.
That's correct. Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
your
hope that.
face that they have to read, not the words as much.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing. I have attempted, at least. Let's say I've entertained the idea of taking Hindi classes, but I've just never really put that much effort towards it because I spend most of my time anyways at the restaurant and in the kitchen. But I kind of, there's something interesting about being able to lead and communicate without language, if that makes any
Mm,
sense. And so it forces me to really be a bit more hands-on with the teaching. And I mean, let's be honest. Like a lot of the team does English, even if it's limited.
yeah.
And I think that sometimes that's enough. So much of what we do is it's a physical profession, both in terms of the demands, but also in terms it's a craft. It's a handcraft. It's things that we need to do with our hands. So for most of the lessons they need to learn, it's experiential. I need to teach them. I need to show by example, but also they just kind of need to do it every day until they get the hang of it. So that that's pretty unique. But there is a philosophical side. There is a bit of management and what I call mind control. There are other elements which only language can really convey, and so sometimes it gets a bit frustrating because I have to use the people around me to convey those things, and I know that it's not exactly what I'm saying. I know enough. I can understand a lot more Hindi than I can speak, and so I'm like, hey, I didn't say that. That's not what
Yeah,
I meant.
but to put you at ease, you've come this far in a decade without knowing Hindi. That's like commendable.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I
the
guess.
food on the plate is exquisite. So you're doing
Thank,
a great job, I guess, leading the teams.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, it means a lot. Yeah,
So now we'll go back to your place where you grew up, which is San Francisco, which has all the food in the world available. But you chose Italian to be your forte when you decided to open Americano. You made it an Italian restaurant. Now
yeah,
tell me why Italian? Why did Italian impress you or influence you that
yeah.
much?
See, I mean, I should start off by saying that I can't help but use all these influences um, that I have from growing, from eating growing up. I mean, I used to eat Thai food and loved that loved eating that with my mom growing up. There was a small neighborhood Thai restaurant, and those flavors they're so vivid for me. Obviously, Italian food is very much a part of California cuisine. I mean, they're both very heavily reliant on quality ingredients. Um, but even whether it's Japanese or um, a good sandwich, all those things are very much a part of my repertoire now. Even if I don't necessarily focus on, and I certainly don't make great Japanese food as Americano is not a Japanese restaurant. But I think Italy was where I really learned to appreciate food because, believe it or not, as a kid, I was a really stubborn eater. I mean, my mom, like, she'd pull her hair out trying to feed me. I could never stay at friends' houses because I hated the food that their parents would cook. I can't tell you honestly, or let's say I can't tell you objectively if the food was good or bad. I can just tell you that I hated it. I couldn't eat tomatoes, cucumbers, anything with seeds, very textural, so I liked overcooked spaghetti with a bit of butter, maybe some of that fake Parmesan cheese that comes in the green can. Um, you know, I was a very, very simple, very, very picky eater. And I had a teacher growing up who inspired me to want. It was an art history teacher, and this was when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old. And he had inspired me to sort of, nudge my mom in the right direction to take us to Italy. So, she raised me on her own, and she decided that, one summer we would go on this trip to Italy. And there was this experience where I was more or less comfortable with the food. Okay, cool, pizza, ice cream. These are things that kids like. I was comfortable with that. And then we're up in this, sort of this beautiful hillside town, and we go into this beautiful little trattoria, which is kind of in this cave almost. And I remember the whole scenery and everything. And of course, like the menu is in Italian, and I'm starting to get a bit anxious here because I can't control the meal at that point. I don't know what it is. The waiter doesn't speak English. Excuse me. And I just sort of had to like put myself in the hands of fate or destiny or whatever you want to call it. And I ordered one thing, and I said, well, what is this? And he says, it's the beans. And I was like, okay, beans. I'm familiar with beans. I can handle that.
Then you discovered new foods, I'm assuming. So
Yeah.
that's when you were, yeah.
So I mean, yeah. Moral of the story is, you know, it just completely expanded my mind, and allowed me to look at food in a way that I hadn't before. And I think, I won't blame my mom, but she cooked she cooked very simply. She's not watching this, is she? She cooked very simply, and there were certain things that she made which I loved. But I wouldn't say that we had a very sort of food focused household. She got home from work, and as I said, she raised me on her own. And so when she came home, it was about getting food on the table, and there wasn't a whole lot of time for finesse or anything really special. Um, and so Italy really kind of showed me that side of taking your time, making something beautiful, making something delicious, and of course the quality of the ingredients there are just insane. And so when I came back, then you know, I was able to really appreciate food in a way that I hadn't before. So much so that I chose to become a chef. And so I think that part of opening Americano was just reconnecting with that generosity of spirit, reconnecting with the things that are really important about food and about restaurants. Because for me, I've been trained in fine dining, and I never really connected with the food. I connected with my mentors. I connected with my chefs, with my colleagues. I connected with the technique, and of course, the rigor of perfecting whatever it is, whether it's a knife cut or whether it's a sauce or anything, a puree, anything simple. I connected with all of those little technical elements. But what was on the plate for me was something that it never spoke to me, and certainly doesn't speak to me as much as like a great lasagna or a tiramisu. And I think that's what Italy gave me, was this way to connect with people through food, through like recognizable dishes which we can all appreciate, and then if you use technique and you use great ingredients, you can elevate them to something truly special. And so that's what we really wanted to achieve with Americano, was not a cop out, not take it easy, not oversimplify things, but really to connect with those special, wonderful, simple things like a great cacio e pepe with perfectly al dente pasta and a wonderfully creamy sauce, and learn to just appreciate it for what it is, and not embellish it or garnish it or tweeze things on it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we just wanted to kind of go back to basics and really connect with food. So that's why.
So what I understand is that So what I understand is that taste is paramount for you.
Taste and
the feeling.
And feeling, connection. Like there has to be some relevance to my life. And I think that I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he said, you're really good at doing the simple things, and I don't mean that as like you're not a great chef or you're, you're a simple guy, but. And I took it only as a compliment, because I think that there's something really special. Like when you give, how many lasagnas, how many pastas, how many tiramisus have we all had? If we're fortunate, we've had quite a few. And for people to say, I think your tiramisu is one of my favorites, or I love the pizza you guys do, it's one of the best in the city. To me, that's a huge compliment, because, it's easy to give somebody, I won't say it's easy, but when you give someone something they've never had and they see the value in it, they don't have a comparison, so they enjoy it for what it is. But when you give someone something they've had a million times and they love it, and they can reference so many other times that they've had it, but this stands out, that to me is an achievement. And that's what we look to do with the food that we make at Americano.
Right. So you chose to go casual, as you said. So, and I want to know, in the lockdown, how did this simple, flavorful food travel, through takeaway? Because that must have been hard for the pizzas and the pastas, because obviously these are hot dishes. So how did you galvanize and pivot to turn Americano's dine-in to the best dine-out?
Well, it's very hard to let go of control, and I think a lot of uh, delivery is like crossing your fingers and hoping that the food is respected on the road, and on the way to the guest's house, and you hope that they eat it soon, and a lot of things are out of your hands. So for me, as like a super control freak, it was a really difficult thing. I mean, when we opened the restaurant, Rubina, we didn't even have pizza boxes for people to take leftover pizza home with them because we were so concerned about the quality going down. So that's like that's how much of a flip that we've done. But I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, and we really needed the restaurant to survive. And clearly, delivery was the only way to make that happen. And so when we started, we opened for delivery much later than most people. I think we were about 3 or 4 months late to that party, and the main reason for that was because we took our time, whether it was with the conceptualization or just what is the missing element? Why is it that some delivery tastes good and some delivery doesn't? And a lot of that is that human element. And we decided that the more responsibility that I can give to the person receiving the food, the better the food is going to be. But obviously, there are going to be limitations. So, can you do total DIY? No, not really, because most people want instant gratification. I myself want instant gratification when I order. So, how do you break the dish down into simple enough steps that it can be reassembled with ease, with the same ease as taking something out of a container, but just with a, maybe a little bit extra care and maybe a little bit of guidance to make it something that's restaurant quality at home. And so we put a lot of thought into that, and we reformulated our pizza dough recipe, things like that, to make sure that it traveled well and that it's
Yes.
stood up to temperature fluctuations and all these things. We really geeked out on it, to make sure that we got something that was edible at least, and hopefully really, really, really delicious for most people at home. And it's also about choosing the right things, because pizza is just historically something which, anyways, we associate with delivery. But of course, there's good and there's bad, and just making sure that whatever it is that we're putting on the menu is something that we can execute, even if it's in the box for an hour, then it sits on someone's counter for 30 minutes, then they remember, oh, I should put it in the fridge, or oh, let me heat it up now. So taking all the things out of our control into mind, and hopefully making something useful, making something good.
So would you say that delivery has been the blue lining in your life for survival of Americano? Because you just opened like in March 2019, it was not even a year of operations, and this calamity has overtaken our lives. So obviously, it must have been very, very hard for you to survive. So is this
Yeah,
the blue lining? I see it as blue lining. I don't want to
yeah,
call
well,
it silver. Your blue is much more prettier.
yeah. Thank you. No, it is. I mean, it's I'm not the kind of person who thinks that now the future of restaurants is in cloud kitchens and delivery. For me, if anything, that this whole situation has just reaffirmed my belief that there will always be a place in society for restaurants. But yes, I mean, it's been our lifeline, and we're able to retain our team. We're able to retain our presence in the community, and so I mean, without it, we wouldn't exist.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I forgot to mention you did not fire any of your staff through the lockdown, which is
yeah,
remarkable.
yeah. Well, that
Wonderful.
like you said, we had a great first year. So my heart goes out to the people who opened the restaurant in March of 2020. We opened our restaurant in March of 2019. So had we done that a year later, when we opened the restaurant, we were like, we need to open now, not a day later, and we need to start earning some money and put some money in the bank, or we're going to have some serious problems. And we opened on the 19th of March in 2019, and we closed the restaurant because of COVID on March 18th of 2020, one
Oh
day
my God.
shy of our
That,
anniversary, 1 year anniversary. So
yeah.
you can imagine. I mean, I know all the struggles that go into opening a restaurant. Many people obviously know that at the very least it's not an easy business. And so for all the people that would open in 2020, it was probably very, very difficult. So for us, at least we had that 1 year to kind of settle things, to gain some momentum, to put some money in the bank for a rainy day. And it's been a rainy year and a half. So
Yeah, talk about days and years, huh?
yeah.
So let's talk about something which pleases all of us because you're in the pleasure business.
Yes.
Let's talk about the most popular dish at Americano.
I think it has to be our corn ribs.
Mm-hmm.
The inspiration behind them was kind of connecting with, it's monsoon season, so it's appropriate. I think it's something that, I really love, and, there's many different versions of it. There's Mexican street corn. There's, boiled corn that you get at the baseball game and in San Francisco. So I think it's something that we all really like. It's like this very tactile, very interactive experience. But of course, you can't, something you can't, but I think in a more refined restaurant, it's very difficult to just put like a boiled corn on the cob or corn on the cob on the menu. But we wanted to kind of play off that and have something which would be equally enjoyable for vegetarians and non-vegetarians, something which is just really elemental and approachable, but also super flavorful and fun. So the corn ribs are kind of this like, you get your fingers a little bit messy, but it's still quite easy to eat because of the way that we cut it. And, it's been probably our number one selling dish, certainly at the restaurant, but I think even for delivery, because it works really well and it holds up really well. It's good when it's cold. It's good when it's lukewarm. You put it in the microwave for 20 seconds. It's steaming hot. It's also delicious. So that's kind of been the number one.
I hope you know what my favorite dish at your restaurant, made by your hands, is.
Oh my God! Is it our pizza?
No.
Is it our love letter?
No, it's something new.
Is it our apple pie?
Yes. It is the best in the world, and I have eaten across. And it reminds me of my grandfather's apple pie. And I tell you, you're like this close to it. It is almost the same taste as my childhood. I fell in love with the first bite. It was the best thing I ever had.
That's really
and I
sweet.
love it.
And see, Rubina, that's for me that like I'm getting goosebumps and very flattering. But like to me, if we can make that connection, like that's like my grandfather's apple pie. If we can make a connection with people based on these kinds of things, I think we've achieved what we've set out to. Because again, going back to Italy or going back to any of these kind of really special experiences that we have with food, I think so many of them are in either a familiar setting or, let's put it this way, many of those experiences are not sitting at a white tablecloth with silver around us. It's about the people who we're with and the people who we share the experiences with. And it can be in a fine dining restaurant. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate fine dining. In fact, I love it, and I have only fine dining to thank for where I am. But I just think that if we can make a great apple pie, one that might even create new memories for you or bring up old memories, I think there's maybe nothing more special than that.
It was so special. I can't even tell. I couldn't believe it. I thought it's like he made it, except it was in Americano packaging. So no, it was you. It was you.
That's awesome.
So how do you plan to go forward with Americano now? How are you going to balance the takeaway and the dine-ins when you can?
Yeah.
I guess there's no fixed formula yet.
No, we're talking about it now. It's tough because by nature, neither Malika nor myself are, these really sort of like aggressive entrepreneurs. We had a very strong vision for what Americano was going to be. And we were so confident in that, and we believed in it so much that we were pretty confident that it would be successful from a business perspective as well. But our motivation is, obviously making great food and having great service and meeting people and having a buzzy, fun restaurant. So now you take that away, and what's left, right? It's like you said, delivery, the blue lining. So with dining and dine-in coming back, again, I have no idea when that's going to be. You know, it's interesting because you want to take back what it was originally meant to be, but now there's this whole new business, this whole new revenue stream, and you know, we're reaching people that otherwise never would have come to the restaurant, right? We're reaching
Right.
people out of the way that are ordering delivery. So how can you take that away from them? So we will need to balance both, and it's kind of exciting. Not that I want to have a cloud kitchen, or you know, I don't necessarily want to take any of the operations away from Americano, but we will have to balance it because you know I'm assuming once dinner opens up, it'll still be 50% capacity, so we'll be able to do that. But when the restaurant was, you know, like fully humming and it was a bit crazy, we didn't have a single square millimeter in our cold room for any additional storage. So that might be
So,
tricky.
can I intervene there? I just want to tell people watching that, Americano was the only restaurant everybody was talking about since it opened. I mean, there was like, if you haven't been there, you're not cool enough. If you have been there, how can I get there soon enough? I mean, it was just an all-consuming enterprise. I don't think I've heard of that in the city for a very, very long time. I mean, a standalone, I've never heard this kind of energy to want to be there to eat it, and then Instagram it and the whole of it. I'm rather fortunate that I made it before the pandemic, so I'm
But,
able to communicate today about it.
it's I mean, it makes me a little bit sad because obviously we want nothing more than that, and it was intentionally. It feels like a big space because of the high ceilings, but it's quite a small restaurant, and that's why we chose that space, was because we wanted it to be just big enough to not be able to accommodate everybody, so that it's always got this great buzz. Because that's what we love about a great restaurant in Paris or New York, right? It's a small place where
Yeah.
you might as well be having
San
dinner with.
Francisco, space is so tight, but all the restaurants are packed.
Right, exactly, and that sense of community, it's not just about, oh, I got a reservation. I mean, there is obviously that element, but it's like, I want to be in a place that feels buzzy because it improves my experience. I like being around people. We're social creatures, right? We don't want to be in an empty restaurant,
Yeah.
and so I mean, we don't take it for granted, and we're just waiting for the day that we can take the training wheels off and and go full speed.
So now let me say what I feel about the business of restaurants and chefs. So I think a restaurant is as good as its chef and the teams that they lead. But I feel sometimes the due credit is not given to the chef, because if it weren't for the food, people would really not be where they would be. It would just be a brick and mortar situation without any soul. So, how do you manage with all these laudits and plaudits for being who you are, the best chef? You invented small plates. I mean, you're a whiz at bakery. You're just, you know, I don't know the word. Like, you're like omni chef. You're like an omni chef. You can do it all. You can do patisserie. You can do savory. You can do all of it. So, how do you cook without any ego? Because most chefs are prone to feeding their egos after a certain point. And you've
Yeah.
seen the highest point in India in your, I would say, 10-year career, which is
Yeah.
rather, also rare. So, how do you cook without ego and stay so like? Is it because you don't know Hindi?
I'd be really interested to let one of my cooks answer this question, because I don't, I don't know if, I mean, I can be difficult to work for because I do have, relatively high standards, and I don't know if that classifies as being egotistical or just exacting, or I'm not sure, but
Hey, exacting is good. Exacting is good.
yeah, but I try, I try not to get too caught up in what I'm making. I mean, I think sometimes, that you hear the chef saying, "This is my food." I mean, what is my food? You're making something that people have to enjoy. And I mean, whether you want to look at it from a business perspective, or whether you want to look at it from a perspective of, offering great hospitality, our job is to make something truly enjoyable, like the apple pie, like, corn ribs, or chicken wings, or anything.
Love letters.
A good burger, and And there's a place in there for creativity, right? Because you can put your own spin on how you make something simple. But I just think that this whole thing of getting your ego involved, it's a young chef's mentality. And when I first started working in India, I think that I cooked with an ego. You know, I wanted to make an impression, and I wanted my plates to look really kind of manicured and garnished, and you know, all that is you're hiding something, right? And then if you simplify it, you say, okay, look, I want to make a great salad with crisp leaves and a balanced vinaigrette and perfectly seasoned. When was the last time in Bombay that you had a salad like that? I mean, I don't know if I can get one right now. I'm
Oh,
probably
Alex, I don't eat salads. I'm not a salad person.
okay. So forget it. When was the last time you had a perfectly seasoned steak or whatever? You know, it's
Oh,
you
yeah,
take
yeah.
some
No.
you take something simple. It's very difficult to get something really simple.
Yes, indeed.
It,
With the right
it's
flavor.
yeah, you know, and simple doesn't mean easy. And you know, you hear this all the time. Simple doesn't mean easy. Simple doesn't mean easy. But whether that doesn't matter. I mean, the amount of effort that I put into my work, or the amount of effort that I require the people that work for me to put into their work, it's irrelevant to the guest. It doesn't
Right.
need to come across. And I feel that with garnish and with ego and all that, you're sort of saying, look, I got a chip on my shoulder, and I want you to know, sitting in this seat, eating at my restaurant, I want you to know how much work this took. It doesn't
Oh,
have,
that's
you know, I want you to smile when you take that first bite and go, yeah, that was good. And that's all I need. That's all the reinforcement that I need to continue my work and to be happy with what I'm doing. And like you said, you know, the busy restaurant, I mean, that's the compliment. You know, having a restaurant that people talk about, that's the compliment. But you don't achieve that with, you know, fine knife work alone, or with, you know, tweezers alone. And certainly ego really has no place. And I think the hardest thing for a young chef also is to criticize their own work and say, you know, this is crap. Scrap it and start over. Or for someone else to say that, oh God forbid someone else said scrap it and start over. You know, it's and removing yourself from that. You know, sometimes I remember like earlier on in the in the restaurant, I had this meeting with the team, and I was frying all of them, and I was giving it to them and saying that this is crap and this is crap. And one of the cooks kind of stood up and he said, you know, chef, we put our heart and soul into this and whatever. And he was feeling sorry for himself. And I said, you know, that attitude is not going to improve your cooking, and it's not going to improve your abilities as a chef, because you have to understand that it's not about the effort. You know, the effort is what gets you halfway there, but you also have to use your mind and understand that if something is not good, if it's under seasoned, over seasoned, it's just not the right concept. You've been married to the idea of something, but in the end, it didn't turn out. You just need to let it go. You have to accept that it's a failure and let it go, and put something good on the menu. Because 99% of the time, people are going to prefer corn ribs over some overcomplicated, convoluted idea. So,
yeah. So you had to drop out of college because you partied. Tell me more. What kind of parties were these? That you didn't go to university, but then you come out as an honors graduate from the Culinary Institute of America, New York. So the guy doesn't study, but he studies cooking.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to get into the partying so much, but I went to UC Santa Cruz for a year just out of high school when I was 17, and that school is, I mean, Santa Cruz is like, was kind of one of the epicenters of the hippie movement in the 60s. So you can imagine what the city is like, and certainly what the university is like. And I just didn't connect with any of the academia. It just wasn't for me. Not to say that I didn't have the ability to if I applied myself, but it just wasn't interesting. And so I couldn't justify being there, and I also didn't really see a way forward from there. Like, what am I gonna? I'm gonna get a degree after 4 years, and where am I gonna be? Any closer to knowing what I want to do with my life? Probably not. So from there, I just was like, okay, well, um, if you're not in school and you don't have some kind of an education in a specific subject, then how do you earn money? Because I couldn't really justify to myself going back home, living with my mom, and not doing anything to earn money at that point because I was sort of quasi independent. So I started working at a restaurant. I started doing prep and helping washing dishes and doing very kind of basic menial tasks that basically whatever a 17-year-old could be trusted with, which I would not trust myself at 17 with very much. And one day, and also let's keep in mind that I had gone to a restaurant thinking that they would pay me, but they weren't willing to pay me with no experience. So at some point, I went to the chef and I was like, I think I'm ready to be paid now, if you don't mind. And she said, that's totally fine, but then you have to step up. You got to put your money where your mouth is and really start producing. Otherwise, how can I justify paying you? And she kicked my butt. She was tough, but she was also extremely caring, and I could tell that she probably saw a little bit of herself in me. I mean, I was so stupid. Like I had a fake ID, and it was a Spanish restaurant and brewery, and so I had gone for this interview, and I used my fake ID to have a beer at the bar while I was waiting for my interview. Like, this is how stupid that I was at that age. And so that's how I kind of like started out in this job. But by the time that I ended the job, I was promoted to a sous chef, and I was running another one of the company's restaurants. So from there, she was like, listen, you actually might have some potential, but you have no education except for a high school diploma. And at some point, you may need to, have a degree to get further in life. And so she was like, you go to culinary school, you do well, and you'll be better off. And so then I went to the CIA and ended up actually caring about school this time and did pretty well.
And then you went on to work with a quartet of Michelin star chefs. How did that
Yeah.
happen? Right out of school.
So when you go to the CIA, like they kind of beat it into your head pretty much from the moment that you get there that like there's a few routes to go if you're going to be in the restaurant business. So either you're going to work in a good hotel, or work for a hotel chain as an executive chef. Obviously, that will take time to get to that position, but that would be your goal. To work for a private club, or to work in a fine dining restaurant. They weren't really encouraging anyone to go and open like a food truck or anything like that. Now it's probably different, but then it was like, if you want to be considered serious in your profession, and this again was in early 2000 when we had some food celebrity chefs, but still it's not like it is today where chefs were celebrated as much, certainly just on a more professional level. And so as soon as I graduated, it was like, just only apply to restaurants that have Michelin stars, only apply to 4-star restaurants, 4-star in the San Francisco Chronicle or 4-star in the New York Times, only apply to these kind of serious big name restaurants. And at that time, San Francisco was in a whole different place than it is now. It was trailing behind substantially in New York. Very dated food, very strange. And so the first restaurant that I went and worked at was a very classic French restaurant, which I think it just recently closed. And I mean, I feel so fortunate that I worked there because the chef, who someone I still admire greatly, was a 55, 60-year-old French chef, like working the line with us every night, which is something that you don't see anymore. And that was a pretty special experience to be able to witness that. And he had more energy than any of us. And then, of course, went on to work at other great Michelin star restaurants, Michael Mina, Manresa, came to India. What's that?
11 Madison Park.
11 Madison Park later on, yeah. So, I don't know. I think that's where the ego is almost. It's like getting these like notches on your belt. But I learned so much in these places, and sometimes you learn what not to do. Sometimes you find yourself, you're pushed to the limits, and you're stressed so much that you really dig deep and you learn who you are. And sometimes you actually learn like quite a bit about cooking, believe it or not. And so these were my formative years and very important to the cook that I am now.
Do you remember the first dish you ever cooked professionally? Or even not, whatever.
So my dad had studied to become a pastry chef, and so my memories of him early on were him working in hotels making cakes, and I think that's something that really stuck with me. This image of like someone in a tall white chef's hat, um, and so back when I was a kid, the only TV shows that we had were like Julia Childs, Jacques Pepin, and a few others that were on one of the 4 channels or 8 channels that were on TV. And I used to love watching them. I get so inspired, and I think one day I decided to make this dish. I think it was terrible, but my mom said it was good, which probably means that it was terrible. But it was
Not
like
necessarily.
it was spaghetti with like olive oil and pine nuts, and I think I may have put some Parmesan cheese. It's a pretty sophisticated dish for I think I was maybe 8 or 9 years old.
The textured dish. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I remember eating it and thinking it was disgusting. Like, what have I done here? But I don't know if it was something that I saw or if it was just that these ingredients were kind of around the kitchen and so I was feeling inspired or what. But that's one of the first things I remember. And I used to cook for my mom a lot, whether it was on Mother's Day or making breakfast in bed, and I would like uh, slice banana and then kind of fan it out, or slice strawberries and fan them out, and I would make these really kind of overly done presentations, as a kid, and then she would like eat them and go, it's really good. So she was very encouraging of me, but I don't think I understood what cooking really was. I really had the understanding of cooking, but certainly one of the first dishes that I made was the spaghetti with pine nuts and olive oil.
Interesting. So, what were your favorite foods growing up in San Francisco? Did you get to eat out or the school
Yeah,
cafeteria?
yeah, that was the cool thing. It was just me and mom, and so we didn't have this when we ate together every night, but our dinner plans changed really frequently. We didn't have to adhere to any structure. Like I think some larger families will eat at the table at the same time every day, or it's harder to change plans last minute. And so we ate a lot of Thai food, we ate a lot of Mexican food, and as I was just saying that it was kind of surprising that for someone with such peculiar and strange eating habits, that I was somehow okay with Thai food and Mexican food. Like those flavors were really comforting to me and very approachable, but like I couldn't eat a tomato. It was very strange. Um, but yeah, absolutely, those flavors stand out for me. Thai food and Mexican, 100%.
What's the food habit you cannot shake? It could be weird, it could be good, it could be bad.
Yeah. All these years, 20 years of working in kitchens, when we eat family meal, a lot of times we're so busy doing other things that we don't always get a chance to sit down and eat. And so um, we normally, if we don't have a chance to sit down and eat, we'll take like a small plastic to go container and just shove it full of everything. Instead normally you would have a plate where you keep everything separate. Instead, we'll just take everything and shove it in one place, and then while we're standing kind of on the go, shovel it in and then get back to work. And so I still eat, in these little plastic containers standing up. I rarely like sit down and eat. So that's kind of a strange habit.
Yeah, but that's the irony of being a great world class chef.
Yeah, I guess
So,
so, man.
what do you like to eat or drink every day? Like, what's your, like, you have to?
Well, I mean, obviously coffee, but good coffee. I can't have bad
I'm
coffee.
assuming Americano, like the style of coffee.
Yeah, I need a cup of coffee. I need like a cup, at least 350 mils, 300 mils. Like I need some hot beverage. As much as I love espresso, and I'll have a few espressos throughout the day, but I don't like the culture of like waking up in the morning and having one espresso and carrying on with my day. Like I need a nice warm cup, a nice warm beverage to kind of sit with and meditate on for a little while before my day starts.
I like that. So, do you listen to music while cooking? Do you have the luxury of doing that?
Yeah, so that was the main thing. I mean, that was the reason that we wanted to have an open kitchen, among other things. But it's I can't understand why we would want to create a fun restaurant and then not be able to be a part of that.
Yeah,
And so you know,
interesting.
um, it's just so much fun. It's so much more fun making a pizza or making 70 pizzas or making 150 pizzas when you've got great music behind you, as opposed to like doing it, in some kitchen dungeon where the light is, like you're a chicken in a hen house kind of a thing. So we're really fortunate because we have an open kitchen that we're able to listen to all the great music that we have on our Americano playlist.
Maybe you should learn Hindi listening to Bollywood tracks.
Okay, let's take it easy. Oh, step by step. First, let me see if I can learn Hindi.
Okay.
No, I do like it, and I appreciate it from time to time. But I very little new music. I'm kind of like a old dog, no new tricks kind of a thing.
Okay. So what kind of music do you like?
So I love soul. I love like neo soul, Erica Badu. I love jazz. I'm classically
I was just
trained.
going to say like gospel kind of vibes going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just very little music that I don't like, but I love hip hop, like '90s hip hop, not whatever the stuff is now that the kids listen to. No, I mean, I love hip hop, love jazz, love blues.
Okay, so what do you wear at home? Are you wearing COVID pajamas when you're not being a chef at Americano?
Well, I mean, I wear, yeah. Let's say I dress very minimally at home. That's a nice way to put it. Very minimally.
So it's like the beach fair. You're dressed like you're on the beach at home.
Yeah, yeah.
You know those
That's a great.
French beaches, French beaches.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Absolutely.
So what's the best thing about being at home more? To strategize for your business? Do you think it gave you more clarity being at home, or do you think what was the
Yeah,
best thing?
yeah. We're not able to have a routine in life. Working in restaurants, it's very difficult. Early mornings, late nights, bad eating habits, irregular eating timings. There's no structure aside from service. You know that you come in, you need to prepare for service, and then service begins, and the guests come in, and you start cooking for them. But what's been nice about the lockdown is that we've been able to get into a little bit more of a routine. So whether that means taking care of ourselves, our health, eating better, although that's something I still struggle with is eating healthy. But working out, getting home, getting to bed, all these kind of basic things that will probably do, and a lot of people may take for granted that I've never really been able to do. Um, so yeah, it's been really nice.
So what's the first thing you do in the morning and last thing at night?
Uh, so I'll tell you what I would like it to be, and then I'll tell you what it actually is. So I would love to be able to wake up and maybe stretch, meditate a little bit, center myself, and then probably something similar before going to bed. But instead, it's usually wake up, first thing, look at the phone, look at WhatsApp, see if someone has called in sick, see what horror stories are there for the day, what ingredients are not available, what ingredients have been sent back. Just basically like waking up in a panic, looking at the phone, making sure that something horrible hasn't gone wrong. And then doing something similar before bed, or then just like binge watching some random show on Netflix and passing out with the TV on.
You like being at home because you've got the routine you never had. But what
Yeah.
is the one thing that you miss being inside also a lot?
Yeah. I mean, I miss travel a lot. Uh, I miss the sense of community. It's been very isolating. I think a lot of people are experiencing that. We're lucky because we work in a small space with our team, and we have a very, very good sense of sort of family and community among the team. So that's nice.
Yeah.
It's not the same as seeing old friends and catching up with people that you haven't seen in a while, welcoming someone back to the restaurant and having a Negroni with them.
Yeah. Or meeting new people at the restaurant because that's what must be the biggest thing in the restaurant.
Meeting you.
Thank you. So what makes you feel like home?
Uh, well, Malika, my cat. We have a cat now. Roast chicken. Simple
What do you
things,
like to pick with your fingers?
which I have to pick. I forget the meat. I just want the carcass with a little bit of meat on it, and I'm good to go.
I heard you chew the bone down.
Have to, yeah, of course.
What can you not resist in life?
Um, so I'm assuming that that implies something that I'm supposed to
Already
resist.
doing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I never had like a sweet tooth. I love ice cream, but like I don't know, like it sounds weird, but like a good haircut. There's just something. It's like this. I have very few sort of guilty pleasures or pleasures at all. I don't really shop for clothing. I don't really buy shoes. I don't have expensive habits. So like a good haircut, just nothing like it.
So who cuts your hair in Mumbai?
Elton. Elton Steve, I think his last name is.
So when are you at your happiest?
When I'm traveling.
So I'm not going to ask you the next question, which is what is your vibe as a chef? Because it's not happy or grumpy, it's emoji chef. So that's how I'm going to remember you now. It's like emoji chef.
Yeah.
So what riles you up in the kitchen? Like when you're working, what really gets you? You cannot bear to see that.
I can't bear to see like a lack of thought, and I mean that can be expressed in many ways, but people like throwing stuff away that doesn't need to be thrown away, wasting ingredients for no reason, or carelessly doing something, a messy station, like all of this is sort of general lack of awareness of what my cooks are doing. If they show me that, then I can only assume that it's being carried through in basically everything that they do, and then I feel less trust for them when I'm not there.
What's your favorite Indian food? In the 10 years that you've lived here, what do you
Uh,
love eating?
Biryani.
And where do you eat it?
I mean, I don't want to sound like stuck up or anything, but I really do think that the dum puk in Delhi just has like insane.
It is.
I've never experienced anything like it. I know it's a bit fancy, but it blew my mind. I was pretty shocked when I tasted that.
So obviously, when you say biryani, you mean mutton.
Yeah, only.
Yeah, because there's chicken too, and you like chicken.
Yeah.
Do you cook Indian?
I mean,
sorry.
No, I haven't attempted it many times, but I don't know. It's something that I kind of have like decided it's off limits. I tried making dal at home once, and I made it in a pressure cooker, and then it was also my first time using a pressure cooker, and I opened and dal like just sprayed all over the kitchen, and I said, "That's it, forget it all. I'll stick to my roast chickens."
Okay, good plan. What's been your favorite takeout during the pandemic? I mean, the pandemic still continues.
Yeah, so I mean, we order from all of our friends a lot, but I feel that the most memorable delivery experience that we had was Mask had done this Korean barbecue where they actually got like these disposable barbecues, eco-friendly barbecues, and we just like they had the whole banchan set up and tons of meat, and it was just like really really fun and interactive, and it was the first time that I felt like I was in a restaurant in a long time, even though we were in my kitchen. So that was that was very cool.
Do you ever cook on your day off, or do you not like to cook on your days off?
So I like to think that I do, but apparently I don't that much. I like to cook on my day off, but kind of going back to that thing about how I eat like in a container standing up. I don't know if you really want to know my eating habits at home because then you might respect me less as a chef.
No. Nothing with respect will come around, but it's best we don't know everything about everybody.
Yeah, there you go. Fair enough. But I do like to cook at home.
Okay. So what's your favorite kitchen appliance?
Two that I love. I love a microplane grater. I think it's something that it's not just for Parmesan cheese. It gives an amazing texture, and you can mince garlic actually very easily or ginger. It's a really nice tool, very inexpensive, and really really handy. The other a food mill, or even a ricer. But a food mill is just great, and you don't see it at home a lot, but they're just wonderful for making tomato sauce, or they're great if you want to make a chunky sauce, or just anything. Maybe you make a beef stew, and you have all these like chunks of carrots and things that a lot of times the recipe will tell you to kind of toss.
Mhm.
You can just put everything through the food mill, and you get this wonderful textured sauce, and it gives a little bit more body to what you're doing. You can use it to make mashed potatoes. You can use it to make gnocchi. There's just endless purposes for it. So those are great tools to have.
So, tell me about a patron that was so demanding that he or she tried your nerves. You must have had a few.
I don't remember the individual. Probably better off that way. But
Yes.
I, one of my first experiences with an individual in the restaurant, a difficult individual, was when I when I first moved here, and this was back when we were able to get some imported meats, and I had a steak on the menu, and I was doing a lot of the work myself back then, not like now where I do no work and I just take all the credit, but I had butchered the meat, I had cut the steak, I knew without any hesitation that this was the cut of meat that I had said was on the menu. And so this guest calls me out to the dining room, and I'm thinking, oh, this guy is gonna just pat me on the back and say what an amazing steak. So I go out there smiling, and of course the guy proceeds to just rip that smile off my face, and he's like, "What is this? This is not a steak. I've traveled the world, and this is not a steak, and this is not a ribeye. And why are you saying it's a ribeye?" And he said, "Sir, like, all I can tell you is that this is. So if you don't like it, happy to take it off your bill, happy to get you something else. But what can I do beyond tell you that this is what I'm telling you it is?"
Hmm.
And he would not have it. He wanted me to basically get down on my knees and admit to him that I was serving him, some other animal, or I don't know what. But that really tried me, and I was pretty proud of myself because I didn't scream at him, or I didn't really go down the bad path. But that was pretty bad. And I think from there on out, I was like, look, if you think this person wants to say something nice, or you think this person wants to just chat about food or something, happy to come out. If you think they have a complaint, the chef is taking the night off.
Good
Because
way. Good
I
way
don't
to
have
do it. Yeah.
I don't have the courage to do that. So.
Yeah. So you obviously love India, and you're in love with an Indian girl who's behind the camera. So Malika, can you come out, say hi? Because both of you are business partners in Americano with your company, which is 8 Number Hospitality, and your partners in life. So can you please say hi? Because you've been like all over setting this up, and people have already seen glimpses of you.
Malika,
Come say hi.
She's in the other room. She'll probably come in here soon.
What are the 5 things one must eat, drink, and do in Mumbai, according to Chef Alex Sanchez?
Ooh. Oh man. Well, I mean, I definitely think that the first thing you need to do is go to Sassoon Docks. Definitely Crawford Market. I think you need to have some sugarcane juice. I think you need to have some bombil fry and some butter garlic crab from Trishna.
Right.
And maybe a nice thali from Sri Thakur Bhojanalaya.
Fantastic. You got it all so cool.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chef, for your time. And I look forward to eating your food, as does the whole of the city.
Thank you for listening to my stories, my random stories. I think my team is always like, every time I have a story, they just start fading out. So it's nice that somebody actually wants to listen to me for once.
No, I enjoyed it very much, but for the connection.
Thank you so much, Rubina. Thanks for having me.
Have a great evening, Alex. Bye.